Good afternoon, everybody. How are you today? Can I just check that you can hear me okay? If you could just type in the chat box, that would be most awesome. Cool. It's been a while since I've been online, so I think this is, we didn't do one in April, so welcome. So today's session is all about how to avoid being scammed. So as we go along, feel free to ask any questions and I'll answer them as we go. So the session is being recorded. It will be available on our website and on our YouTube channel, as are the normal webinars. So just a brief hello and welcome as to who my name's Kelly Peters. I'm the co-founder of Data Basics. I've been working in the world of information governance and data protection for almost 20 years now. I'm a little bit passionate about data protection, and as it says here, a little bit of fun fact, I'm a big fan of the cookie. Who isn't? So let's talk about some really interesting facts that I found. So there has been a significant increase in phishing scams, phishing scams, SMS message scams, and a whole variety of incidents over the last 12 months, more so because of the pandemic. Banks have stopped almost in this country alone £1.6 billion of fraud being exercised. Mimecast, who are the big kind of email scanning provider, reported that there was a 64% increase in email threats during the last 12 months. And KnowBe4 state that 91% of successful data breaches become from a spear phishing attack. So it's a very specific, targeted phishing attack on an individual. So my first question for everybody here, is that a surprise to anybody? Would you think that the statistics would be higher? Or have you in your own businesses seen an increase in, or personally, have you seen any increases in spams, whether they be email, text, phone, for example? Feel free to use the text box to let me know if you've been experiencing any of these. I can see some people typing, so I'll wow, that's pretty phenomenal for telephone scams. Yes, there's been a lot actually from Royal Mail at the moment. I've seen a lot of those. To be fair, myself, I've had probably more so in April and May, the SMS messages from the Royal Mail telling them I owe them £2.99. Yes, and there is the DPD as well. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of that as we go along. So there are a whole variety of different scams that can take place. So there can be a doorstep scam. So someone's trying to convince you to kind of give you some kind of money or sign up to some kind of charity. Whenever someone knocks at my door, I literally will tell them if I'm interested, I will sign up to the website that I know them to be at and register. I will never convey any details to anybody on the doorstep. We do have mail, which we're going to go through today. I'm going to talk about phone and text, and as well as email and online. But it can also be this relationship where someone rather cruelly pretends to be someone they're not, builds a relationship, and then ultimately scams you for a significant amount of money. That can lead to identity theft, and there has also been an increase in investment and pension scams that have been going on in the last 12 months. So I wanted to give you an example of a phone scam that happened to a member of my family. So my younger sister is a hairdresser. She lives in the south of the country, and it was probably about beginning of January. She got a phone call from someone telling her that she was owed money. They were owed money. They were the HMRC, and she had to pay them immediately. Otherwise, the police were going to come knocking on her door in the next hour. They were going to ram down the door and they were going to arrest her. Now, needless to say, because of the way that this guy introduced himself and the way that he came across, he was incredibly threatening, and my sister went into a massive panic. Now, she was told that she owed almost £2,000. Now, the the only saving grace is that my sister doesn't have a credit card, so she couldn't actually pay that. And there was a moment that she said, I need to speak to my brother. So she phoned my brother and said, I just want to check if this was right. And my brother said, don't answer the phone again, report it because it's clearly a scam. But the important thing about this was the amount of emotional pressure this individual put my sister on to get her to the point that she almost, if she'd had a credit card, she would have given over £2,000 to this individual. And I don't know if that's ever happened to you or an elderly member of your family. My mum's had phone calls purporting to be Microsoft telling her that they will upgrade her laptop over the phone. Fantastic. Didn't know that was possible. But there are a significant increase. So they are very emotional, some of these. So whilst I'm going to focus on text and I will talk about email, phone are just as emotional. And actually, people can convey a real threat over the phone. So they can be very terrifying. And it's, it's easy to see that there's people here that are getting phone calls, and typically around the tax year you'll get a phone message, a recorded one that's from the HMRC, asking you to dial a number and give them information. Don't is essentially they would never phone you. So let's do a quick poll, because I think that would be quite useful just to know what, if any of you are experiencing any of these. So have you, and we've talked about it here, but I'd be really interested, have you been subject to any of these scams in the last 12 months? So hopefully you can see the survey in front of you. If you can just indicate which ones you have been, that would be really useful. Oh, HMR fraud scams are terrible, and they do put you under an awful lot of pressure, don't they? Excellent. So I'll just give it another few seconds, and then I'll share the results back with you. So let me share these. So hopefully on your screen you can see that actually by far all of us have had some kind of SMS text scam recently, and obviously we've also been subject to email scams, and clearly someone's also had an investment pension scams. So it's really interesting that we're all experiencing this. And the thing is, we're experiencing this both personally and within the work environment. Now, some of you may have started to see an increase in really sophisticated invoicing coming through to you, where it looks like it's a genuine invoice. It's telling you that you have bank details have changed, and please now pay the following. And I was speaking to someone yesterday who said that she worked for a company in the last 12 months that almost paid an invoice for £600,000. It was only because there was a little bit of uncertainty that they phoned the company up and said, I just want to check the details of this invoice. And the company said, we haven't sent that. Can you imagine almost paying a £600,000 invoice because it looked that genuine? It's really quite terrifying. So let's go back to the presentation and let's talk a little bit more. So I'm going to test you, and then I'm going to come back to this image at the end. So there has been a significant increase in social media scams of late. And I wonder, if you look at this, if you think you can see anything wrong with it. So just take a moment, take a look at it. There is definitely something wrong with it. And then I'm going to ask you again at the end of the webinar to tell me if you can see what is wrong with this link. So I can see some of you are already taking note, but I'll come back to it. So let's take a moment. Let's focus on spam text. So you've all said that you have received a spam text. And as you can see, the HMRC have also got a spam text. This is a genuine one that came off of their website. But in the last year, we have seen increased text messages about vaccines. COVID texts have been through the roof. We've got the DPD attempted to make a delivery, or the one that I've recently got a lot of is the you owe £1.99 to get your package delivered. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've spent the last 12 months pretty much working from home. So I would hear the postman if he was trying to deliver something to my house, and normally I'd get a card through the door. So these are things to be very weary of. And what we need to be mindful of is take a moment when looking at these messages to see, hold on, does this look genuine? Am I expecting a package to be delivered to me? If so, does this look genuine? And if it doesn't, log into your account. If you have a DPD account, or if you have an account that you've bought something from Amazon and it's going to be delivered by DPD, check to see if within your account it tells you the tracking ID, or if they've attempted to deliver something to you. So don't automatically click the link, because once they click the link, they are typically going to take you to a fake website that looks absolutely genuine, and they are trying to obtain your contact details from you. And I'll go on in a little bit to explain what you can try and do to avoid these. Now, there is a text number, so you can type spam on your phone pad, and you can forward a fake text message to your phone provider, for example, and they will take a note of it and they'll try to stop that particular one coming through to you, although people are super sophisticated, so it could quite easily come from a different phone number tomorrow. So whilst we've also got spam text messages, we also get messages a lot that come via email. So, and obviously spam text messages can come both by a personal mobile as well as your work mobile phone. I don't know if you get many through your work mobile phone, but I know most of my spam text messages come to my personal mobile. Now, when it comes to email messages, many phishing scams originate from overseas, and typically what you'll see is that there is a spelling, grammar, or punctuation error. Others will try and create official looking emails by including logos and graphics. So again, look at the graphic and see, is the design and the quality of that graphic what you'd expect from the organization that you engage with? And obviously, if someone has hacked into your company email accounts, that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be looking at your logo. They're going to be looking at how you write your messages. They are going to try and mimic the way that you send and correspond with individuals. When you look like you've got a fake email address, click on the actual address itself to see if the email address looks valid. Typically, there is one digit wrong in a fake email. Is it addressed to you, or is it addressed just to hi customer, which is what we have here on this next Netflix? Or is it saying valued customer, friend, or colleague? The ones I think we need to be more wary of is the ones where we are specifically named. So hi Kelly, or in this instance, hi Joe. Are any of the emails containing veiled threats that ask you to respond urgently? So, for example, I typically get emails about Netflix or PayPal, and we have a corporate PayPal account. So we do get these fake emails both personally and through the business account to tell us that our account will be deactivated if we don't take the following actions. My instant response will always be to log into the account under my login and password to see if there's any messages or if anything looks inappropriate. And I don't know if any of you have received any of these kind of Netflix or PayPal, you urgently need to pay PayPal. Look out for emails that appear to come from high-ranking people within your organization. A number of people that I have spoken to over the last 12 months have said that they have seen their senior management teams' emails having been compromised. And typically what an email will be is that someone is going to be out of the office. The individual that has hacked the email knows this, and they will send a message to a more junior member of the organization to say, please, can you pay this invoice urgently? I forgot to do it before I went on holiday. And many people in that scenario would not question an email like that from their boss or from the senior management team. And if it sounds too good to be true, it really is too good to be true. And you can see in the chat that we've had, a PO came through yesterday that was a scam. You've got several TV license email addresses. So do think about, would all your staff or your team or whatever the size of your organization is, would they know how to detect a fake email, for example? Would they feel confident enough to be able to check the to box, check to see if the language looks appropriate? Would they look to check with another member of the team to say, does this look genuine, for example? So the other one that we get is that there's a very popular one is the HMRC. Now this came directly from the HMRC website. It looks like it's quoting a particular reference, and this one actually has an attachment to it. And this email is actually quite sophisticated, because when you download the attachment, it's also got a link in it as well, which you can either download the document, or within the document you can connect to a fake web page which looks like the HMRC. It says it's, you've got the Crown Copyright and HMRC Revenue and Customs, and these are typically timed. This was obviously the 4th of September, but they're typically timed at the end of the quarter, because we can now make obviously quarterly submissions to the HMRC. Be mindful of the messages that are coming through to your email accounts and to your team's email accounts, because they're definitely going to be on the rise, and they're not going anywhere soon. And if you think about the statistic that I showed earlier, where I said that Mimecast, it was Nobi 4 said that 91% of successful data breaches come through a spear phishing attack, which is an email address which mimics an individual within the organization. We need to be more prepared for this. We need to be reassured that as an organization, if we are the owner of that, we've put measures in place. And if we're not, if we are a member of the organization, what is management and IT's approach to monitoring and trying to prevent these type of emails coming through? And the other thing to really be mindful of that I've seen a lot of, because we are now, a lot of us working remotely, you don't have that just turn around and check to someone. So I think people are more vulnerable at the moment to being susceptible to this, because they're not in an office environment. That's not to say that everyone needs to go back to the office. So that's kind of the email messages that I'm seeing. But there's also compromised social media accounts. I had a client recently tell me that one of their social media accounts had been compromised. They'd actually been kicked out of it. So, and it's a real nightmare to try and convince the social media platform to give you access, because you have to verify you are who you say you are. Yet someone's been able to access the admin account of your social media. Now, we do a lot of interactions through social media these days. We're raising a profile. We may be engaging with individuals, both commercially as well as personally. I don't know if any of you have had well, you don't have to tell me if your accounts have been compromised from social media, but have you seen compromised social media accounts? The thing to be mindful of there is, if someone has taken over your social media account for your corporate organization, they could obviously put out misleading information. It could be damaging to your reputation, and it can be incredibly hard to get back control of that. Now, what I see a lot of is, I see a lot of fake competitions. There was one recently for Blenheim Palace, and essentially the way to detect it was fake was the fact that the blue little tick next to Blenheim Palace wasn't there. But as you can see on here, what we have is Range Rover. That's fantastic. I would love a connection with Keanu Reeves, to be honest. But yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm thinking that it's definitely a scam. Unless you're definitely confident that you know that it is Keanu Reeves. I think it's more that they might then be able to get information from you from that scenario. So here because through some social media platforms, you're actually taking payments for products and stuff. You'll have a Facebook shop, for example, or you may Instagram account may direct people to a wrong and compromised website. So ways to look out for compromised social media is, again, the spelling of the names. It will be that there is no blue tick, so check the spelling. Fakers usually use full stops or spaces or dashes. Look to see if there's a blue tick. Review the about section here to see if there's nothing there, then it's never a good sign. See if it's if there's a website attached to it anywhere, and if there's nothing, again, question why. I mean, Land Rover or Range Rover are a massive organisation; they would definitely have a website. And also, again, like I said with emails, if you see fake competitions, like they're trying to give you £1,000, they are typically after something. They are after your name, they're after your email address, and once they've got that information, they will then look to misuse that. Or they may be trying to get information about you. So if it's a competition where they're like, tell us a bit about yourself, your demographics, they may be using that for nefarious purposes. So if you do have social media accounts, whether they're personal or business, think about the ways that you can try and protect them. Again, have different passwords. Think about the complexity, obviously, of that password. Who knew that Keanu Reeves had so many profiles on LinkedIn? That's quite interesting. Don't tempt me to go down that rabbit hole. So these are some things to look out for, and some of the things that you can train your staff up on as well. Depending on the size of your organization, you'd want everyone to be aware, because this is an increase in activity. You want to be able to raise the awareness of scams and the damage that they could do to your organization. You may also want to check your insurance to see what they are expecting you to have in place. So do you have a cyber insurance cover for this type of activity? If not, question is, why not? Do you have it as part of your overall company policy? Now, you may not know that, but hopefully your company does have protection. So should you be subjected to this type of attack, your insurance company can help you out. So some top tips really is that, if it's too good to be true, it really is. So, for example, a holiday that's cheaper than you'd expect, unless you've gone onto a holiday comparison site, just double check to make sure it's the genuine site. If someone unexpectedly contacts you that you're not expecting, take a moment to think. You suspect you're not dealing with a real company. For example, there's no postal address, so there's nothing on an email, there's missing information on an invoice, for example. So think about how you might manage this particular type of scam. If you're being asked to transfer money quickly, now this is one that from both a corporate and from a personal perspective, you want to be considerate of. So don't make any immediate payments. Always take a moment, and anyone that's managing finances in your organization should be reassured that they can take a moment. They shouldn't have to automatically respond and press a link and transfer money, because it could be fake. If you're being asked to be pay in an unusual way, for example, via a money transfer or via PayPal, rather than your normal direct debit or BACS transfer that you would do. If you're being asked to give away personal information like PINs or passwords, now one of the ways that this can happen is people will phone you up. So this happens in the corporate world, is that through social engineering, people will phone up and they'll try and elicit information from you to work out what your PIN is or what your password is. So don't give it out over the phone, and certainly don't give it out via email or any of your messaging channels like WhatsApp, for example. If you haven't had written confirmation of what's been agreed, so if you haven't received something back, then it's suspicious. And obviously, the other top tips to think about are always question unsolicited phone calls. So, as an organisation, are you registered with the corporate telephone preference list? As a personally, are you registered with a telephone preference list? So, these are in a way, they should prevent your telephone number, whether it be corporate or personal, from being published. It doesn't mean it's going to be 100% protected, but it does give you a way of trying to protect your information. Do you always install the latest software and app updates on all your devices? And this is not just laptops and computers. This is iPads, whatever the Microsoft equivalent or IBM equivalent is of an iPad. I'm a Mac girl, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. And your mobile phones, for example. And if you don't know that, would anybody else in your team know that? Is this something that is managed by the IT department? Does it happen behind the scenes and you're confident it's happening? If not, ask the question. Or, whilst I appreciate that on a Monday morning, you might not want to press an update on your phone or your computer, do make sure that you do run those updates if you're expected to. And certainly on your personal devices, make sure they're up to date. I'm a big advocate for strong passwords. I'm an advocate for complex passwords. The passwords that we now advocate is, a minimum of 12 digits, complex in terms of numbers and special characters. And certainly accounts like bank accounts, your bookkeeping systems, or anything that has real sensitive information, we've introduced two-factor authentication. It would be interesting to see if you're getting any, or if you apply any two-factor authentication. Oh, so it's interesting. So I can see in the chat box that we've also got someone that's receiving cold emails from businesses trying to connect. I think that happens a lot in the business community, actually, and then follow up a week after trying to get more aggressive. So you are right. I mean, people can be really intrusive and trying to convince you. I think the more they put you under pressure, the more you feel that you have to connect. I typically just ignore them. But do you, as organisations, implement any level of two-factor authentication? If someone of a senior team leaves, and they've got access to the corporate bank account, for example, or the your bookkeeping software or your accounting software, do you go in and change the passwords, for example, and the access? But really, most importantly, really listen to your instincts and be wary of unsolicited calls, emails, or online ads. If, as I've said throughout today's webinar, if it's too good to be true, it really is. And then the final tips, hopefully, again, these are covered through your IT policies and procedures in your organization. And from a personal perspective, you make sure that the technology in your home and that of your family members or your housemates do the same. Always install and enable antivirus software. It's there for a reason. Don't automatically click a link in a text message or in an email. The best way, if you're ever uncertain about something, is to always phone a telephone number that you know, not the telephone number that's in the text message, not the telephone number that's in the email address that you've just received, a telephone in your CRM system or in your Outlook, wherever you store telephone numbers. Phone them on a number that you trust and confirm. You'll now get lots of emails from lawyers and accountants saying that they will never change their bank details without first kind of actually contacting you. It won't just be on an invoice. And a personal favorite of mine, now I don't know if any of you do this, but I have a shredder at home. I've always had a shredder at home. I will destroy all receipts. I will remove all information that's addressed to me and shred it. In a cross shredder. I would never just rip a letter up that's addressed to me, or a box that still has a label with my address, or any of that information directly into the bin. As sad as it sounds, people do rummage through your trash and they can get this information. And from a commercial perspective, how do you destroy information that has confidential information like bank details, potentially like a credit card, statements and stuff. Do you have a process where you can shred that, or you have a confidential waste? Hopefully it's just not left around and open to anybody. And certainly, I think there are some good approaches that are here in terms of the use of VPN to directly access your system securely from home to the office. I'd be really interested to know what you as organizations do in terms of protecting phishing scams. Does your organization test you, for example? So I've got a couple of clients that have invested in software that their IT team will run. They will send a text, an email out to everybody to see how many people click the link, to see if there is a risk of people being susceptible to phishing scams. They are very good at a way of identifying the problems that you may have, and the IT teams in some of my clients regularly do that. If anyone is interested in that type of software, I can send you some links that you can explore to see if that's something you want to introduce. Do you provide training to your staff on cybersecurity to help them be aware of the risks that are open to them of phishing, email, of text messages, for example, or via online? So it's one of these things that I would really urge you to be ever more mindful of. So please, and we're only going to see an increase in this. So I'm going to go back to the fabulous example that I showed you anywhere, and some of you did notice the difference in the Instagram. Now, it took me a while when I looked at this the first time I'd done this to work out what the actual problem was. I was looking at it for about 2 minutes. It's like, I don't understand what the problem is. And I potentially would have clicked on the link. It's only when you actually take a moment away and you look back and you see the A's are different. Now, that's how sophisticated people are today at trying to replicate social media accounts and email accounts. So whilst we may still get the occasional email from a country in the African continent trying to tell us that we are owed a significant amount of inheritance, a lot of attacks today are vastly more sophisticated than that. And they will genuinely try to look to the best of their ability like you or your organization. So if you don't know how your company manages these type of attacks, it's well worth asking the question. So are there any questions that we've had? I've seen there's been quite a lot of interaction in the chat box, which is great. But does anyone have any particular question, or does anyone have a particular recommendation in terms of software that they use to detect phishing scams, for example? I'd be really interested to know what you use, if you do. I do like the wood burning stove. That's quite funky. We did have a client actually based in Cornwall that at the end of every year they had a bonfire and they would actually burn all of their old paper records. Possibly not the greatest thing for the environment, but it's what they did. So I can see some people typing, so I'll give you all a moment to... I don't ever connect with random people on LinkedIn. So for me, I will always check out their profile in the first instance to see if they are who they say they are. Typically, if they've got, if they're new, if they're relatively young, they might not have a lot of connections, for example, or I don't know, they could be old and just new to the world of business. But for me, when someone connects in with a LinkedIn, I want them to send me an actual message. So anyone that just connects randomly without any kind of introduction message, I typically ignore. But I will always try and look at their profile to see, are they in sales? What possibly could we have in common? how many people do I have that are similarly connected? So do we have lots of people in connection with? And if I was really suspicious, I'd actually go and speak to one of my connections to say, have you started to see this connection? Do you know who this person actually is? So as with everything, I'm always super weary of people that come out of the blue that are trying to connect with me without any kind of introduction about why they think it'd be interested to connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't know if that helps at all. Do any of you use any kind of password managers? So we've got here in the chat box someone that uses LastPass. We use Dashlane here at Data Basics. That's our standard password manager that we have. It also scans the dark web to see if any of our credentials have been compromised. So I can see some more typing. So that's a really good question. If someone breaks into your password manager, I suppose it depends on how complex your password is. I mean, for me, my password is about 16 digits long, and it's totally random. So they would, and it's in my head, so I don't know how they would actually compromise it through my password. The reality is, if they're that intent on getting access to your password, then you're a little bit scuppered, to be perfectly honest. You're never going to be 100% risk-free when it comes to this, but to me, a password manager allows me to have multiple passwords for multiple platforms. I believe that all the password managers do have a free option. I pay for a premium version of my password manager. So I'll let you type some more questions. So some other things to think about that you might be interested in is that we do have a best practice group that we run. It has companies of all shapes and all sizes as part of it. There's absolutely no fee to attend. And the purpose of these sessions are twice a year for us to be able to talk about a few things that are top of mind when it comes to data protection. It gives you a safe environment to share some of your data protection concerns. They're not recorded. We don't take any notes. And hopefully the ones that we have created have given real benefit to the members. So if you are interested, do send me a message. I'm more than happy to invite you to the next one that we have. How can we help you? So we have our GDPR toolbox. We provide training, for example. We also can help you do compliance checks in terms of running audits, for example. Oh, thank you for some of the very compliments about the best practice group. If you do want to continue to receive lots of fun free stuff, we've got our podcast that runs on a weekly basis. We do these webinars every month. Next month's webinar is going to be on the children's code that has that was published in September last year, that goes live in September this year. So if any of you are developing apps, or you've got websites where there could be appealing to children under the age of 16, then you might need to be aware of the children's code. If so, join me in a month's time where I'll talk about age-appropriate design of systems. Feel free to sign up to our newsletter and follow us on social media. So I hope that this has been very useful to everybody here. It has been recorded, so I will send you the recording link next week once it's up on our website and up on YouTube. If there are no other questions, you are more than welcome to head off to your sandwich, your cup of tea, your drink. I want to thank you for your time. It's always awesome to have you here and listen to me talk. I'll be here for a couple more moments if any of you do want to ask me any questions. For those that don't, you want to shoot off, do. But again, thank you. It's been great to have you here.